When I was a teenager, I moved to the Netherlands to get my bachelor's degree. I remember the last year of my high school, my parents kept asking me, "What do you want to be? What do you want to become?" I had no answer. At the time, I definitely knew that I wanted to study abroad. I wanted to learn more about other cultures, improve my English, and experience life outside my home country. Right after high school, I moved to the Netherlands and ended up staying there for the next 10 years. Even though within the first few months, when I just arrived in the Netherlands, I kind of realized that this country is not for me, I decided to stick it out. I finished university, got my degree, then got a job, then got another job, and then another job, and then another job, and also decided to get Dutch citizenship. Looking back, I have some regrets about not being able to leave earlier. However, I try not to blame myself too much for it. I probably just wasn't ready to leave at that time. A few months ago, I finally found courage to move away, and I'm not sure if I'll ever go back, and there are a few good reasons for that. Now, everybody of course knows Amsterdam is the capital of the Netherlands, but it's not the only place I've lived in. I've spent 3.5 years in Leeuwarden in the north of the Netherlands. I've also spent 2 years, almost 2 years in the Bilt. I've lived in Utrecht Leidse for about a year, and then I moved to Amsterdam and I've stayed there for 4 years. The Netherlands is an undeniably beautiful country with its very unique architecture and charm, a democratic society, and a freedom that I truly appreciate. However, there are a couple of things that really got under my skin, and I would like to share those with you today. And I'm gonna start with the first and the most important reason for me, and it's weather and nature. I need the sun every single day. I never get tired of it. I can't survive without it, like a lot of people can't survive without it. Unfortunately, in the Netherlands, you won't see much of it from October up till April, May next year. It's brutal. Winters are dark, cold, windy, just nasty. They're always wet and nasty. Summers can be nice, but in my 10 years living there, I only recall August and September being warm months. June and July might have a week or two of nice weather, really warm weather, but even then you might need to wear long sleeves, like jeans with a long sleeve. Now, my experience also might be different from others because I tend to feel cold easily. So around 30 degrees, 86 Fahrenheit will be very comfortable for me. And unfortunately, there are not a lot of warm days like that in the Netherlands, so I would constantly feel cold. And these constant gray skies were really affecting my mood, and I would constantly feel depressed and sad, and it's just not fun to live in a country where you always see gray skies. And you know, when the weather is like that, you really don't want to be outside. So instead of going for a walk, for example, and like enjoying the nature, enjoying the sun, or like we're not even talking about the sun. You can go for a walk when it's cloudy. The problem is that in the Netherlands it's very windy. So I remember I had so many days when I love jogging and I would go for a morning jog. However, I would not be able to run. I mean, don't get me wrong, of course you're able to run, but the wind is so strong that it's making it so difficult for you to run and really enjoy the jog, which is, it's insane. It just ruins the mood and motivation. So as I said, because the weather is like that, you constantly need to come up with ideas how to meet with your friends. So I, for example, always had dinners with my friends, which is very nice, don't get me wrong. It's very nice to invite friends to your house and, you know, have like a cozy, nice dinner together, cook together. But eventually you will get bored from doing this at home. You need like going to restaurants and doing indoor activities were the things that I was doing in the Netherlands most of the time, because it would just be very difficult to be outside. I talked about the weather, but I also wanted to bring up nature to this point as well, because I'm a nature lover, and it's not that there is no nature in the Netherlands. This would be a lie. There are beautiful forests there, and there are beaches there and dunes. The country is, however, very overpopulated, so no matter where you go, you're not gonna get a feeling that you're alone. You'll always see people everywhere. Also, there are no mountains in the Netherlands. It's a very flat country. There are no dense forests. As I said, you'll always bump into people no matter where you are. And there are, of course, beaches in the Netherlands. However, because of the weather, it rarely gets really warm so that, you know, the water is warm enough for you to swim. I did swim once. It was cold. It was the end of August and it was a very, very warm day. That's the reason why I decided to try it, and it was extremely cold for me. Now I'm gonna move on to my next topic, which is healthcare. I did hear some Americans say how wonderful Dutch medical healthcare is. However, coming from Eastern Europe, I do have mixed feelings. Now, I was born and raised in Belarus, and regular checkups are a norm, like, you know, doing your blood test once per year or visiting a gynecologist every 6 months or at least every year. In the Netherlands, this is not the case. There are no checkups, which drives me crazy, to be honest. And when you visit your GP, your general practitioner, a doctor, your doctor, and you ask them to refer you to a clinic to do a blood test or just to do a regular checkup, they're most likely not gonna do that. You need to give them some kind of proof that you need this medical checkup, and most of the time this proof needs to be something very, very serious. There was a time when I needed to check bilirubin in my blood. Now, I have a liver dysfunction condition, and I asked my GP, my doctor, to please let me do the blood test, let me check bilirubin in my blood because I need to test it on a regular basis. She didn't let me do that. She needed some kind of proof, and I remember I sent her my blood test, which I did a couple of months ago, but it still wasn't enough. I'm not sure what kind of proof you need to bring them just so that they can let you do the blood test or something like that. And I know that some people have different experience with doctors in the Netherlands. However, I've lived in different cities, and I think there was only once when the doctor allowed me to do a blood test, which was fantastic, but most of the time it was a no. Usually when you go to a doctor and you tell them about your symptoms, they will give you paracetamol, which is like an ibuprofen, a painkiller, and they will ask you to drink more water and to not stress. And it kind of became a meme among expats in the Netherlands, but it's not really funny if you think about it. Health insurance is mandatory for every resident of the Netherlands, which I remember before COVID I was paying around 100 euros. And this year, I believe my insurance company raised prices to 148, which is, for some people, might not be a big amount. However, I do think that it's pretty good amount to be taken from your bank account every month, especially if you're somebody who doesn't go to a doctor on a monthly basis. I study nutrition and I want to become a nutritionist to help people deal with their health problems. So most of the time I do not go to doctors. I go to nutritionists, which I need to pay out of my pocket. And all the supplements that I need to take are out of my pocket. So I am kind of wasting money on health insurance every month. That said, there is a silver lining. If you need a medical emergency, then the insurance will be able to cover all of your costs. If you have something serious like a surgery, for example, the first, I think around 385 euros or 400, you need to pay out of your pocket, and the rest is covered by insurance. For example, if you have a surgery that costs 600 euros, you do pay the first 400 euros and then 200 is covered by the health insurance, which is like you're still paying the most of it. But if your surgery costs 15,000, 20,000, you still pay 400 euros and then the rest is covered by insurance, which is really great. So I do appreciate this aspect of the system. It got pretty dark outside, so I decided to turn the lights on, and I'll continue with the next reason, which is housing costs and availability. Many houses in the Netherlands are quite old and in a bad condition. The rent prices are sky high. I used to work for a couple of tech companies and my salary was pretty decent. However, I could not afford to live on my own. I used to live with roommates, and living with roommates is nice and fun, but you get to the point when you feel like you want your own space, but you cannot afford it. I think if living alone was really a priority number one for me. I could find the money to pay for it. However, for me it meant cutting back on other things like traveling, which I love so much, hobbies and education and going out, for example. It meant that I would need to cut on all of these things to be able to afford a house and stay at home, I guess. The Netherlands is also overpopulated, which makes it very difficult to find housing. I'm not saying it's impossible, however, it feels like it's getting more and more difficult. And I remember there was even time, probably like 3 years ago, my roommate was the one who told me about it, that apparently new students who moved to the Netherlands in September to start school, they were living in tents because they just simply could not find housing, which is crazy. Reason number 4 is the language. If a Dutch person is watching this video, please don't hate me for this. Nothing personal, please don't get offended. It's not like my native language is the prettiest one, but I am not a big fan of the Dutch language. I reached an A2 level, I would say definitely B1 at some point. However, I just simply could not practice, so my Dutch language skills just kind of vanished, to be honest. I am not able to speak it anymore. Not like at all, but I'll probably be very bad at it right now if you try to communicate in Dutch with me. Saying that, if I read Dutch or hear Dutch, I'll probably understand around 70%, 80% of the conversation. But when it comes to speaking, the problem in the Netherlands is that around 98% of the population speaks really good English. And so the moment they hear you have an accent, they switch to English. And I remember there were a couple of times, not just once, I had moments when I would say something to a person in Dutch and they were a Dutch speaker. And I would say something to them in Dutch and they would reply in English and I'd be like, maybe they were not sure. And so I would reply, they say something again in Dutch, they would reply in English. And to be honest, I kind of gave up. The 5th reason is food and culture, and don't get me wrong, I love patat. I honestly love it so much. But beyond that, stamppot? No. The Netherlands doesn't have a strong food culture compared to countries like Mexico or Brazil or Japan or China or even other European countries like Italy and France, for example. My husband is Mexican, so I've been spoiled with Mexican food and it sure makes me happy on a cloudy day, but it's not like that in the Netherlands and I just wish there was more food culture, but unfortunately it just wasn't my experience. And finally, I'm gonna finish with more of a personal reason, so I'm not sure if anybody would be able to relate to this. As a teenager, I accepted an opportunity from my parents to study and live in Europe, which at that time I thought was something I wanted. However, there was another place I was dreaming about and a place where I wanted to be, where I wanted to live. Unfortunately, I had very difficult emotional relationship with my parents, so I could never really raise my voice and kind of tell them, look, I'm here and this is what I want. So I just ended up taking the opportunity that they gave me and accepted a choice of the country they made for me. For all 10 years that I lived in the Netherlands, I couldn't shake that dream. So I do have a lot of regrets. The regret of wasting my time there and not pursuing my dream sooner created a lot of anger toward the Netherlands, toward my parents, and toward even myself. And I'm gonna close off with saying that I know I've been pretty negative in this video. I don't want to offend anybody. I just wanted to share my personal experience and the reason why I wanted to leave the Netherlands. Despite everything I mentioned, I'm incredibly grateful for my time in the Netherlands. I achieved a lot there, made lifelong friends, and grew so much as a person. I met some of my best friends there, had meaningful relationships, and learned so much about myself. The Netherlands is a beautiful country with its own charm. It just wasn't the right fit for me. I also want to give some credit. Arranging visas in the Netherlands is relatively straightforward in comparison with other countries, and I love how easy it can be to arrange things online without needing to call anybody, especially for people who hate calling. Anyhow, thanks so much for watching this video. Bye bye.